Yo, what's good, Roughnecks fans, and welcome back to the Rough 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Cullen Watkins, and as usual, I'm here with my co-host, A-Train Arlington Lane. A-Train, how are you doing after week two? Yeah, how are you doing?
You know what? there's a lot that was left, I guess, unsaid, undone. I guess with what happened with them against DC, they had a chance to win and they couldn't quite pull it off. But got a lot of positives, and of course there are some negatives. But let's get into it, man. You know how we do.
So we're going to be, of course, covering today the 18-23 loss against the DC Defenders in week two, as well as covering the next game, week three, against the Michigan Panthers. But before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe. We are growing rapidly here on YouTube. I love it. This is the spot to be if you are a Roughnecks fan. And also a huge thank you to the Fuel Sports Network, as well as the Pro Football Newsroom. Shout out to all of y'all. It's great, this community we're having. But, okay, we lost 18-23. And Arlington, like you said, really like the Memphis game in week one. It was winnable. It was essentially almost the same situation. We had one drive to go down and win it. But we got to talk about, in my opinion, the biggest storyline that we got from this game. Reid Sinnett will now be QB1 for at least the next month, with Jarrett Guarantano going out with a rib injury. Arlington, your thoughts. What did you take away from the game?
And when you saw the injury with Guarantano, and shout out to Kurt Menefee and Joe Klatt, they were doing their best to see what it could have been. Mm-hmm. And also Devin Gardner, they did their best to see what the injury really was. But they thought it was a back issue because of how Guarantano was walking off, and he could barely walk at that. Mm-hmm. So we find out that the injury is actually the ribs, and so that is going to at least last a month. And like I've seen, shout out to James Larson over at Pro Football Newsroom. He had made a tweet about it and saying that a lot of people thought it was his back, but it was his ribs, that from the inside source that he got. But that was a crazy injury, because he could barely walk, he could barely move, and he had to be carried off, couldn't get to the locker room on his own. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens now with Reid Sinnett. And Reid Sinnett came in, and he did a phenomenal job until the end.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep that as a footnote. Until the end, he did phenomenal. Until the end, but that's how I'll leave it. Reid did a fantastic job in relief.
He did, and I'm all hopes and prayers out to Jarrett Guarantano. I mean, love him or hate him, you don't want to see a guy get injured like that. I mean, I remember watching when they showed him sitting down. He couldn't even get to the locker room, like you said, Arlington. He was sitting down on the stairs to the locker room. Like, oh God, yeah, that's not good. But with Reid Sinnett, he went 19 for 30, 221 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 136 passer rating. Really good for coming off the bench. Really good for coming off the bench. But like you said, Arlington, he wasn't able to finish the job. That's how I explained these past 2 weeks for the Roughnecks. They have victory in their grasp, but they're just unable to finish the job. Now, I don't know. I'd still want to see these next coming weeks. I'd like to see what Nolan Henderson can do. I feel like he should be thrown in there. But overall, I mean, he had that great play to Kiki Chisholm for that touchdown. And I was watching that. I'm like, oh my God, it's a miracle. The Roughnecks are actually throwing it more than 5 yards down the field, and look what happens. So, well, Arlington, what did you think about the play calling? Because we talked about that a lot going into this week. Did you notice any big changes with the offensive play calling?
I think there was more times where we saw anything over 5 yards,
Mhm.
especially in the air. That was good to see because you always want plus yardage, plus 5 yardage when you get into second and third down situations. You want to make sure that you have a greater chance of getting a first down. We saw a lot more aggressiveness on the passing game, as you stated. Cullen, Senate was 19 of 30, so he got over 220 yards passing with the one touchdown. So yeah, we had a lot more aggressive play calling from Coach Johnson and Coach Price. You know,
Mhm.
they were doing a phenomenal job making sure that Senate was ready. So that's the key thing. He wasn't rattled. He wasn't nervous. He looked completely ready at a moment's notice. You know, and him coming in, that's a big positive for the Houston Roughnecks going forward on in the season. You're going to need somebody that is ready to go at a moment's notice. And now the same thing is going to happen for Nolan Henderson when
Mhm.
he has to be the primary backup for Reed Senate going into this week 3 matchup.
Mhm. One word to describe just what I saw from Reed Senate this game: professional. He, like you said, he came in at a quick notice, and he was able to manage that offense in a very professional way. He was not rattled at all. And I remember, researching this quarterback room going into this season. Reed Senate was my number one guy. I wanted him to start based on his preseason success with the Bengals and the short sample size we got with when he was with the Brahmas last season. And it's talking about the play calling, whatever. It was good to see Justin Hall be utilized more. They got him into open space and he made the plays. So shout out to Justin Hall as well. He went 6 receptions, 44 yards. Not too bad. He moved the ball. That's what mattered. Defense wise, we had the Corn Elder pick six to start off the game. Reuben Foster once again leads the team in tackles. He is proving himself as one of the best linebackers in the USFL conference, if not the whole league. What were your thoughts on the defense?
The fact that you have guys like Odom, Ethan Westbrooks, Reuben Foster, how they were able to get to the quarterback, how they were able to make tackles um, behind the line of scrimmage and stuff like that. That is phenomenal. That has maintained. That is not the problem here. Now it's about what's funny is this was a complete game for the Roughnecks. The problem was they just could not get the W.
Yep.
And that's what is going to have to be the case. Now you have to really get into the late game situations when you're just down a few points, just seeing, managing the clock and sitting still. Sit still. I understand that you were dealing with a DC audience of 15,000. They're screaming and getting loud. They got that beer snake rolling, but sit still. And I can guess that what probably had been said was I couldn't hear the snap count. That's I'm just guessing. I'm not saying that's what it was. I'm guessing it said I just couldn't hear the snap count, so I moved, and the ends on the line were moving.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else in between was staying still. Just sit still. Just wait till you hear height or something
Mm-hmm.
or go, whatever. You got to hear the key word. And so now, hopefully, as they're getting ready for this week 3 matchup against Michigan, that's going to be one of the things that they have to work on is late game situations because there should have been no way that 2 false starts, excuse me, in that final drive that killed that whole drive.
Yep.
It just
Drive
shouldn't have
kill.
never happened. And they were driving.
Mm-hmm.
They were driving down the field. but 2 false starts killed that whole drive. You can't do that.
It was very frustrating to watch because it's ironic. When I was in high school, my football team did the same thing on a potential game-winning drives. It's just the O line, they move, they want to move, and then it's drive killers. It's not the opponent beating you. It's you beating yourself. And we Reed Sinnett almost threw a game-winning touchdown at the very last play. I believe it was to Braden Bowman. That ball was close, and all I can think of, if they were just a little bit closer, they were just a little bit closer. That is a total possibility that one of those players could have come down with the ball. And I've been wanting to talk about DC as well. Yeah, they picked up a win. I was not too impressed with them, though. Something is up. And I think they talked about it in the broadcast on that final play, playing man coverage. You bet you have to be preventing a touchdown, and you're playing man coverage. That almost cost DC the game. And so great job to DC for being able to pick up the win, but they have a lot of issues of their own that they're going to need to deal with.
Right. This is not the same DC team that it was last year,
Not
where
at
they
all.
were able to make those type of plays in those type of situations.
Yeah.
This is a greater talented version of the UFL now. So that means teams are a little bit smarter than they were before, and players that are on from different teams are now on these other ones. And you can't play that type of football
Mhm.
in that situation. Like, I don't even know what Greg Williams was even thinking about. He was like, he didn't care. Like he was like, at that moment, is either it's going to be us winning, it's going to be them winning, and we're just going to take it for what it is. And so he wasn't, he's a very aggressive guy. And
Mhm.
so that's what he felt at that moment. That's what he felt that was going to be needed and best. And he didn't care if they got burned or not. But at this case, DC got the win. They remain undefeated at Audi Field. And, it's back to the drawing board for the Roughnecks.
But Teamu, speaking of quarterbacks, he played a decent game, 16 for 32, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. I'm, I don't know. What do you think, Arlington, about Tiam? I just want to touch on him real quick because I was watching him. Something just seems off. Some of the throws he was making, he was missing his spots. He was missing his throws. Now I don't know if it's like a Tampa Bay Bandit situation where he's just having more O line troubles. Is he not? Is he missing those wide receivers he had last year? What do you think the issue is?
I think is exactly that, the latter. You're missing guys like Blair and
Mhm.
Lucky Jackson. They were able to get to spots where Tayama was able to get the ball to. Granted, I saw a little bit of 2020 in him when he was starting to make throws that were, they got him overthrown and stuff like that. You
Yep.
know, but Fred Koss is going to continue working with him. I think we have to remember that in the past, that could be USFL, could have been XFL. Those first 5 weeks were always like struggle moments. You're going to have a lot of weird offensive play. I can't, but some are it's going to click, and others, it's going to take some time. I know with Houston's case, I think they can click a little bit better with Reed Sinnett as the quarterback. Let's get that straight. I get it. Guarantamo is a guy that has talent, but right now you're now at a win now status, right? If you want to get that second spot, because I really don't believe anybody's going to knock off Birmingham for that number 1 spot. If you want that number 2 spot, you at a win now status. You're going to have Freed Sinnett. Even when Guantamo comes back, I really do believe if Sinnett is doing a fantastic job, and I'm not saying it could be for record wise, it could be his playing wise. If he has great stats, and they're either in the game or winning the game, you got to keep it. You got to keep the ball rolling with Sinnett. So it's going to be interesting to see how well he does over this next month of time that Guarantamo is out. So
Mhm.
we're looking at probably 4 games or so.
Yeah.
So it just At this point, Senate is the guy. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to fans. Guantamo's just not it. I understand that this was his moment, but Senate is ready. He's already there. And you should be good with that. Now it's just working on, again, late game situations and getting more, like you mentioned early on, about Hall getting involved in the offense.
Yeah.
This was a guy last year that, according to Joe Clatt, was in the top 5 in the USFL in receptions. Get him the ball. That's simple.
And it's a matter of waiting for Mark Thompson to become healthy again and to play. I just, again, it's a lot like week one. You just can't help but wonder. I love TJ Pledger, right? I respect what he did in college. He's no Mark Thompson, though. We need him so bad. We got Odom back this week. Let's hope we can finish off this injury time period for this team and bring Mark Thompson back. Because a Thompson Senate duo, okay, now we're talking. We are talking now. With having a guy like Mark Thompson to rely on in the backfield, can get a lot of that pressure to make big passes off of the offense. And now Arlington, going off what you were saying with going for the second spot, because we know the Birmingham Stallions probably going to finish number one in the USFL. Doesn't matter. Whatever. We knew that. The next game we have is against the 1-1 Michigan Panthers, who lost in their game against the Birmingham Stallions 13-20. So we'll be in Michigan. Your thoughts? How is this game going to look?
Well, this will be the third in a row for Michigan. So they're getting home cooking. And quite honest, I think they should have been 0-2, but a
Yep.
64-yard kick changed all of that. So, but in this case, for the Roughnecks, they'll be playing indoors this time around. So it's going to be interesting to see how well they're able to get. Hopefully, Thompson is coming back. Haven't heard anything as of yet. Can't wait to hear from what Coach Johnson has to say on the ETA for that. But we're looking at if you can't go without Thompson, it's about utilizing the passing game and utilizing Hall and utilizing Pledger. Let's keep using that and remembering what you did against DC was 5 yards or more. I know you have to take what's given, but make sure the spots are at least 5 yards or more.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And when that occurs, you can get better play calling, you can get better offensive production when you're at that type of stage. When you're in the plus mode, it's greater for teams like Houston in this case that don't have a win. I think they're the only one in the USFL conference that doesn't have a win.
Yep.
So they're going to be hungry, and you got to come out firing. Reed Senna can do it this time. So he doesn't have to wait to start. He's going to be the guy. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to start instantly.
And the way I look at it, if you want a chance of getting number 2 and making the playoffs in the USFL conference, you're going to have to either get wins against Memphis and Birmingham. But before you can even do that, you're going to have to beat Michigan. If you can't beat Michigan, you're not beating Memphis and Birmingham. So, like you said, starting off 0-2, this is a must-win game. You can't start off 0-3 and lose to the Michigan Panthers. I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree with you, Arlington. They should be 0-2. They just happen to have a great kicker who can hit 64-plus yard field goals. They should be 0-2. They have a great defense. I am worried about that. But the Panthers' offense, I mean, their quarterback room, I'll say it. I'll keep saying it the whole season. I said it the whole offseason. Their quarterback room is the worst room in the UFL, in my opinion. EJ Perry, I'm not a fan of him. Etling, I'm not a fan of him either. So, I mean, this is a very winnable game for Houston. This is a very winnable game for Houston. And as we can tell, I'm Michigan, they're not filling out Ford Field too much. So if you can handle DC like they did, they can sure as hell handle Michigan. So, like you said, Reed said it. He needs to get out to a hot start. he can't let that defense settle in, because as soon as that Michigan defense settles in, it's going to be a tough, tough game to win. So start off early and start off strong. Uh, I mean, I
That's
don't.
no better way to put it.
Yeah.
You couldn't have put it any better way than that. You got to start off strong.
Yep.
You have to put your foot on their necks and have to do it early. Because you get a guy like Frank Ginda, either open field or he's coming blitzing. Listen, he can be a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they lost against Birmingham, there were moments even in that game where it seems like Birmingham was a little shaky.
Yep.
Even when they had brought in Adrian Martinez, I love him.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's just not that guy. He's not Matt Corral. All right. I know a lot of people question Matt Corral. Can he handle it? Um, but I see with Skip Holtz, he's got a two quarterback system with him. He wants same thing with the Arlington Renegades. It's really funny to me. It's really funny to me that in the state of Texas, the only team without a win is the Houston Roughnecks. That is the thing that interests me the most. No, I take that
Arlington.
back. I'm sorry.
Arlington.
San Antonio is the only team with wins
Yep.
because
Yep.
I forgot Arlington is only two themselves. So yeah, I'm sorry. I caught myself. San Antonio is the only Texas team with the win in the UFL. So this Texas Triangle thing ain't doing so hot.
It's not. If you told me this situation last season, what do you mean San Antonio's the only Texas team with the win? I wouldn't have believed you. Wouldn't have believed you. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Panthers, they showed great. They showed some good flashes against Birmingham, but I don't know. They're a lot like Houston. They have a good defense, but their offense just isn't clicking yet. So I think that's really all we have to say about this upcoming game against the Panthers. You can't let the defense settle in. You got to start off hot,
That's the key. That
because
is the key.
the Panthers, they struggle playing from behind.
Right.
So that's where that comes in. Now, prediction wise.
I ain't do so hot.
You did not. You are now
I do
three
so.
and five on the year.
Oh
I
God.
am 5-3 on the year. Let's see if I can keep it up. It's going a little too good to be true. We'll start off
Not doing so hot.
again. We'll start from the bottom top. I don't know how that happened, but let's just do it. We have the 1-1 Battle Hawks going into San Antonio and playing the 2-0 Brahmas.
Now,
Arlington, your thoughts?
this is not the same. This is not the same matchup like it was in week one. So uh Brahmas at home again. I know they're going to be loud because this time, like I said, this is a true battle between these two teams.
Uh-huh.
This is a rivalry in the division, them and then, of course, with the defenders. I'm talking about the Battlehawks in this case. And I really think the Brahmas are going to pull it out because home cooking, Chase Garbers is doing a great job. They had a fantastic win against Memphis. They're on a high right now. Hey, they pulled a Battlehawks of
They
2023 on
did.
Memphis. So that energy is going to continue into San Antonio. And I got the Brahmas over the Battlehawks. It's going to be again a one-score game in this one. So, and if you're a betting man, I would take the under. No, I'll take the over. I'll take the over.
Yeah.
I'll take the over because 27 points and they scored 20. If it's anything 40 to 45, take the over.
Yeah, I was
So,
about to say under. Ooh, I'm a little
because
nervous.
I'm like, because there ain't no defensive struggles. 'Cause
Yeah. Yeah.
there's going to be many defensive struggles in this case. Because the offenses can score a lot of points.
Hmm.
So I think that's going to be a really good game. But I think the Brahmas is going to pull it out against the Battlehawks.
Interesting, because as much as I love that coaching staff over in San Antonio, looking at my picks this week, might be some questionable ones in here. I have the Battlehawks winning, but I'll tell you why. I that San Antonio Memphis game, up until that comeback in the fourth, Memphis had San Antonio's number.
That's true.
They did. And that Marcel Aitman, AJ McCarron connection is
It's working.
looking hot.
It's working.
It
It's
is
working.
looking hot.
Working.
Plus, they have the running back from Duke,
Durant.
Durant. I loved watching him this week. And I thought that the Battlehawks won against a very good looking Arlington Renegades team. Yes, they were in St. Louis, but I thought the Battlehawks, especially compared to how they looked week one, they looked really, really good. So I think with San Antonio and Memphis, we saw some weakness from that Brahmas offense. I'm thinking the Battlehawks, their defense will be able to handle San Antonio, but more specifically, I think AJ McCarron will be even better this week and lead the Battlehawks to a win in San Antonio. Like you said, Arlington, it will be a one-score game, give or take. So, all right, starting off split. I like it. I like it. Next,
Battlehawks fans gonna be so mad at me, but that's okay. I'm cool with that.
hey,
I'm
yeah,
cool with
hey,
that at the end of the day.
we can't be persuaded or swayed anyway.
Exactly.
Speaking of Houston Panthers, Houston, Michigan. Who do you got?
Roughnecks getting their first win. This is it. This is it. They're getting their first win against Michigan.
Yep, I agree too. Just like how we said, pretty much the whole podcast, we sort of explained our prediction. Reed sent it. He looked good. Showed a lot of good flashes. I think things click. I think things
I think
finally
it clicked, yeah.
click. And I think our defense makes some good plays this week too. I think our defense does. So,
They're gonna
all
get to
right.
EJ Perry a little bit, have him happy feet. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So make him try to shoot a 70-some yard field goal instead of a 60. You know what I mean? So
Make him prove it. But I
yeah, prove
shout
it.
out to Jake Bates, the
Yeah.
guy, like the broadcaster said, build him a statue at Ford Field. That guy, I mean, I've never heard a crowd cheer for a kicker that loud before. So I shout out to him. But Houston gets the win. Next game, so this is now on the Saturday slate. Memphis versus Birmingham. Battle of the top USFL teams. Who you got?
This is Birmingham's home opener. It's
Yep.
prime time.
Yep.
A lot is going to be pressured on for Birmingham to do well at home, and hopefully 20,000 plus can file into Protective Stadium. Um, Memphis, uh, Memphis let a game get away from them, so they're going to be a little pissed off about it, and so they're going to have to come on strong. They're definitely going to have to reduce the penalties
Yep.
because they were having a hard time in their secondary, and a lot of those plays wind up going against them. And because DiFilippo was hot, and I know he's going to be hot this week. But in the end, Birmingham is going to pull it out, and they'll go to 3-0.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is the game that when I was looking at my predictions, I said, oh, I have some interesting picks here. I know a lot of Stallions fans are going to be mad at this pick. I actually have Memphis going in, and if you want to, upsetting Birmingham, because I just keep thinking if you get rid of that final few minutes of that San Antonio game, I mean, Memphis looked phenomenal. Phenomenal. Case Cookus can lead that offense. Well, you know what? This is another great point. If they finished in the red zone in that San Antonio game, there would have been no comeback to begin with. I mean,
Yeah,
Case Cookus got down to that red zone so much, but just need to finish the job. Same thing with the defense. At the end of the game, they needed to finish their job defending against San Antonio. But I don't know how I feel about the Birmingham two quarterback system. I really don't. I'd like to see Matt Corral take the reins of it, but Martinez, I've never he is so fast. My God, he is fast. So I don't know how I feel about Birmingham. They did have some shaky moments against Michigan. I think Memphis, if they clean up some of those mistakes, like you said, I think they'll be able to squeeze one out. But it's also against Birmingham. This is a stupid bet to make considering Birmingham's record. But I have Memphis winning. I may regret it, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. And then finally, to open up the slate, DC versus Arlington, a rematch of the XFL championship last year. What do you got?
Um, they're in Arlington this time, so
Yep.
they're going to get an opportunity to see what the fuss is all about in Texas. I'm looking for Arlington to get revenge, meaning getting their first win.
Yeah.
I'm looking for that. That means they were able to put points on the board.
Yep.
It's just that in the situations that they were in, like the game flow was everything. Like they got it. It's just that now, you got to finish the right way. And Taylor Russolino missing that kick in the dome where he used to do that in 2020 was just a big shock to me. Like I said, when I was watching the game on my phone and I literally flipped when I seen him. I'm like, you missed? Are you kidding me? And so I'm like, I know he's gonna want a little more revenge, and hopefully that doesn't hurt him, with that miss, because they wind up Andrew Smith with the kick, and they won the game for the Battlehawks. But at this case right now, DC looks a little different. Everybody knows it. Of course, everybody knows about Abram Smith. They knew about Chris Blair. They knew about the Jacksons. Um, I really think Arlington's going to get their first win. This is going to be my silly pick of the week. That Arlington's going to knock off DC at
Okay.
home.
Okay. Uh, I agree with you. We have about 5 minutes left here, but I agree. Everything just like you said. DC, I think they're still figuring some things out. And Arlington, they played a great game against St. Louis, but like you said, Arlington, it just between the missed kicks, the game flow, it just didn't work out in their favor. But I thought Perez, he looked great. Lindsey Scott Jr., a guy who I essentially made a whole video on in the offseason, it's almost he looks really good too. I could almost see like last year with the defenders how they had Derek King in the red zone and on extra point conversions. I could see Lindsey Scott filling in a role just like that, and we saw how it worked for DC. I think Arlington, Bob Stoops, Perez. I think they get the win. DC, they're just figuring way too much out right now to get a win against a team like Arlington. So
Absolutely. I think that's at Lindsey Scott is the X factor to me in this case. You utilize him. They did a good job with him. They were able to move with him in the red zone. When Perez couldn't get it quite yet, you got the legs of Lindsey Scott. And like you said, it's a DC in reverse. It's a DC situation in Arlington. You don't have a De'Aaron King back there. But you do have a Lindsey Scott in Arlington. So at this case, I think that if they play off of that, getting into the red zone, they're able to get the ball down the field. Yeah, Arlington can do this. They
mm-hmm,
can do this at home. Like I
mm-hmm.
said, these divisions, they're different. And that's what's the cool thing about the UFL. And eventually when more teams get into play, you're going to see what that's going to look like when you're playing against your division rivals. You get to play them twice a year, so that's the cool thing about it.
For sure, for sure. And you know what, Arlington, there's one thing I'm glad we never talk about on here before we go, and it's expansion. I'm glad we don't talk about expansion a lot because I don't know. Like looking at some of the attendance numbers, I want to get some of these numbers up before we talk about adding new cities and whatever. Even though I'd love to see a Chicago team, I'd love to see a Chicago team. That's like a dream of mine. But anyways, that should be about it. I have all of the predictions in. We'll see how we go. We have some altering picks here this week, but should be a good slate of games. Again, that the Battlehawks Brahmas game and then that Memphis Birmingham game. Must watch spring football, but you're not going to want to miss any of this. And of course, if you're still watching, you're a Roughnecks fan, so don't miss the Houston Michigan game as well. But Arlington, anything else to say? We have about 2 minutes 30 seconds left.
I will say this. I gotta throw this out there. I'm gonna throw it again on the X Fan Show and other content we got on Fuel. Is the presentation of Fox. They're using old presentation and it's working.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's working. It's working. I like it. ESPN, not so much. And hey, to my fans, and I'm probably in the minority, I like Lowell Galindo. I love his energy. Sometimes it can be over the top, like the build the statue stuff that he said on I think that was him.
It was
on Jake Bates. Come on, man. Really? Come on, dude. We getting a little ahead of ourselves, dude. But I love his energy. His energy is fantastic. Him and Tom Luganville do a fantastic job together. I think that's a great team with him and Harry Douglas. And I think Caleb Burton got a chance to get a chance to work with them as well. But Fox's stuff is superb. We need to work with Devin Gardner just a little bit more. Add a little more seasoning. I know I think it's his first big job. So give him a chance to work with that group, and I think they do fine because I've always loved Kurt Menefee and Joel Klatt together. When they work together, it is phenomenal. But that presentation, I'm loving every minute of it. I'm like, we might as well use that for the whole season and just get rid of ESPN stuff.
I know. I'm same way. I love Fox's stuff. It gives me throwbacks to XFL 2020. But yeah, it was fun to watch the DC Houston game on Fox. I wish I saw PJ Walker's name in the corner. I wish I did. But anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching this third episode of the Rough 'Em Up podcast. Again, make sure you like and subscribe. Should be a good episode next week. Let's hope we're reporting on a W, our first one. But anyways, folks, thank you so much, and make sure you rough 'em up and